is, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Rules Committee of the Representative Town Meeting of the Town of Darien. And the first item is approval of the April 29 minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? The second. Thank you. Comments, changes, issues, questions? I see none. All in favor? Aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Three abstentions. Okay, because we're not there. Aye. Did we able to get those, Mark?
They're here.
All right. Okay, good. We had.
Close.
No, there we go.
Oh, that's the we're absent. That's all right.
So the minutes stand approved. Just quickly, I had a complaint from the Education Committee that they didn't appear as assigned on the $3 million Ox Ridge portion of the meeting of the RTM's last meeting, and it's open to any committee that wants to report. Obviously, we just set a guideline, and the schools are owned by the town, and the bonding is done by the town. So it seemed logical that F&B could be the ones carrying.
So can I explain? Because I actually during the rules meeting said that education should. If we're going to go with that notion that F&B is the only one who talks about bonding, then no subcommittee should exist. Because everything in this town has to do with bonding and money and this, and that's F&B every single time. But then the other committees, education or Parks and Rec, they need to speak to their areas as well. I mean, we can't just, because it's bonding, it's just F&B.
I think you should look at the ordinance. The ordinance is very clear that F&B is for bonding, and because we are the liaison in from the Board of Finance. Bonding is a Board of Finance resolution. So all we're doing, we're not talking about the rest of the details there. All we're doing is talking about the bonding and the details that go on for all the other subcommittees. But just the introduction of the bonding is an F&B thing. On many of the other things that deal with finances, like, there's a couple of things that will be going on today. We're like the last ones because it has finance, and what we're going to talk about is the finances.
I think that part of the gap there was that's a fact, and what you did was exactly right on. But the Education Committee didn't have that piece of background.
I will.
So we kind of need more.
I will say that I was biting my lower lip.
Several times that.
Yes.
And no, I don't care about the Highland Farms. I fully agree with what the members of Park and Rec did. So I just didn't like September date. I wanted it now. So and we accomplished that. So I'm fine. The fact of the matter is every committee chair is copied on what's on this agenda going forward. We're all there. We
Tell me
get
the background, though, the background details, because we had great information tonight, and we've had.
Well, I got an email from the chair, from Clara, a week or so before the RTM, and she asked me about it, and I told her exactly what Jack just said, and so I thought it was sort of settled, but.
And there's nothing that, and the other thing is if you're going to do it, I mean, there's one thing about reporting. When on something as important of any of these buildings and other things like that, no different than it was when we were doing the Public Works Garage and we had all the committees together, meet with the people make sure that the people who are doing it, the building committee and other things like that, are there to speak to you. You can't just meet on your own to discuss something.
I couldn't agree more.
So that's all I'm saying. And if that was things, but nobody stops on the bag ordinance. We're not going to be assigned, but we are going to have a little report that just says this was supposed to be minimal, and based upon the information we have, it's minimal. Our report's done. We're not voting on the ordinance itself, we're just voting on was this minimal.
But I think there is also an argument to be made that for significant, all the RTM approves is always has to do with money. So everything has to do with money. So if we're bonding $3 million, I think it would behoove education to report on it, because those of us who aren't following it closely want to know that there is support for spending this $3 million. Otherwise, how can we vote for it? Yes, we're bonding it, but should we be bonding it? I want to hear from the Education Committee their support that, yes, this makes sense.
The Education Committee, I mean, I'm just on this topic. I don't disagree with you that I wanted to hear from them also. I was surprised that they were not second. And neither
We talked
you nor-
about it, because I asked Teresa, because you remember you had gotten up and left the meeting because you had to go to the other one?
Right.
Otherwise, I would have asked you as well.
I
So
would
I
have
asked
seconded
Teresa
it.
and I said, don't you feel like you should report on it so we can all do it?
Because all of those things start off in the capital part of the school's budget, and the Board of Finance then will sometimes decide.
No.
No, it
Did it
does
say-
not.
Some
That's
people
an
said it
that's an inaccurate. There is, if you're talking about the bonding of like a roof or something like that, that may start off. When we're
Well,
talking.
we're not talking about Oxford, we're talking about Henley's roof. That's the part we were,
Yeah.
we were not talking that.
You could have reported on that as well.
But we weren't assigned it. I'm talking about the Henley roof.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was talking about Ox Ridge.
Okay.
Just for a second.
Ox Ridge, the only thing that the Board of Ed really has is what is our education specs that we need? What is the projections for enrollment? And who are we putting in there? So for Ox Ridge,
Right.
being that ELP is also being consolidated, those are the three things. For the Education Committee, that's basically all they would be reporting on. Ed specs were delivered in September. The McBroom did a presentation on the enrollment projections. And the Board of Ed, as part of their ed specs, decided to consolidate ELP. But that's not that wasn't the 3 million.
That's right.
That's going to be the June meeting
Right.
when we're talking about what else is going on.
Okay, the part I was talking about, just so you know,
Yeah.
is the Henley roof.
I would agree on both of them.
Yeah.
And the Henley roof starts off in the capital part of the budget.
Yes, I agree.
We were talking about the four special, just to clarify, we were talking about the four special allocations, or whatever you call it, because we had the $50,000 for Parks and Rec, there were the sidewalks, there was the Henley School, and I forget what the fourth one
I believe,
was.
not to jump in, but I believe, well, at least 2 out of those 3 reported on that in their report from their.
They did.
And so the Henley School was the only one that didn't.
Yeah,
And so
education.
that's all we were talking about, because Clara had gotten up and said she was surprised that she wasn't.
On the 3 million thing, you had one sentence, this is a selectmen's thing.
Yeah.
I went back and looked, because I couldn't remember.
Let's just stay on
And
that.
you just had one sentence, this is a selectmen's thing.
Yeah,
But
which
that
is,
If
We did discuss Henley.
If I might, one of the things I spoke to Seth about, because if you notice, and I think it worked very well on the selectmen's budget, if you notice, we were very high level from F&B on our report, and then relied on Mac and Monica and Park and Rec and the others to do their reports there on the deep dive, because if you were to look at who's really primary to the Board of Selectmen, we're not, we're secondary. All the committees are primary to the various departments. Our only real primary one face-off is Board of Finance. That's who we do. Now,
all right,
that being said, one of the things that I think we're gonna try and do next year is that since we do capital first, is request 2 reports from the chairman, because some of the capital was in the selectmen report, but we had already voted on the
You know,
capital.
I know.
So
we
just
noticed
to
that.
work on
It
that.
might work.
Can
We'll
you
look
say that
at
again? Can you just clarify that, Ryan? I'm sorry.
We do capital first.
Okay.
Because we're approving capital. What's in the Board of Selectmen budget is nothing more than a mere transfer, not the approval of capital. So we're really looking for 2 reports, one on everybody's specific capital project, and the first item A, And then item B, it's just on their operations.
And I call,
Gary, or did you have more?
just to clarify just a little bit on that, is that this was just a unique meeting. I gotta say.
Oh.
Yeah, in many respects. So sorry I missed it.
Would have been less unique.
But I called up Jack and I said, well, what do you want, Jack? You want me to get up and down 4 times? Or do you want me to say it once? Or twice, it would have been.
In this particular
case, that's
say
the
it
reason.
once.
I fully agree that we should report on capital when
Right.
we do the capital.
Okay. So that, yes, Gary.
Must be avoided.
My comments are not accusatory, but I don't know how anyone else feels. I do not want to see another incident in our meeting that dealt with the Park and Rec Committee and asking about Highland. I don't know who didn't get the information, who didn't ask what questions, who didn't get together, but I think that was something that we could easily avoid and we should not have to go over that again. I don't want to call it disgrace, but I sat back there going, this should not be happening. And if we are going to, as a group, be at least the leadership here, maybe it's our responsibility to make sure that people are talking to each other. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out here, but I don't want to see that again. Again, I'm not pointing the fingers at anyone. I just know what the result was, a result that I didn't like.
Well, we have this coming up. It's
I'm just,
a little out
like
I would like to defend Park and Rec. I was actually very proud of the Park and Rec Committee. And I'll tell you why. The person who we were working with on Highland Farm happened to have a personal issue so that individual was unable to be at her committee meeting. Regardless of whether or not it should have been sooner rather than later, I don't get into that. So had that individual been there, I think that all the answers that they had, all the questions and the answers would have been done.
maybe,
That being said, that I am proud that rather than rubber stamping, if people had issues, that they decided that they could not come to a vote. And from that perspective, I'm very proud of Park and Rec.
well, Jack, don't get me wrong, as I said, I'm not accusatory. I'm looking at the finished product that I saw out there on the floor, and I did not like the finished product. I think that's my opinion I'm expressing.
All right. That being said, we've got it on the table. We know about it. We're in a position to deal with it going forward. We're awaiting some more guests to come. Luke Ganeen's here, Representative Board of Ed on the Building Committee, but Kip Coons is going to come and present that. So without objection, what I do is move to plastic bag because we have the plastic bag people are here, and we'll put that on. I'm a little out of order, but
Okay.
I'm juggling.
Hi, I hope I'm known as something other than a plastic.
This bag. What a lovely legacy.
Yes. So Frank was kind enough to make copies of the resolution, the final resolution. And this is what Wayne has signed off on, and this is what our committees have agreed to. He also included some information on the state level. I don't have any new information from the last meeting where I presented my talk. So I'll keep this brief, and if you have any questions, fire away. Obviously, we are going to disseminate all of this information and give the full RTM plenty of time to contemplate this issue, as I'm sure they have already been contemplating, because we've been talking about this since November. I guess the big question for people is what's going on in the state level. There's nothing new there as of, I think I called it 3 o'clock today. So there's a Senate bill, it has not been voted on. It's on the calendar, which is a fancy way of saying that. It got out of the environmental committee and now it needs to be voted on by both the Senate and the House. That hasn't happened. It will happen between now and June 5th.
And as you are all aware, that June 10th meeting is when we'll be voting on this. Irregardless, if the if the Senate bill goes through, I guess the main takeaway is that municipalities are allowed to have more have a more restrictive ordinance, and ours is more restrictive. And I think our ordinance is very tailored to our town, and I'm comfortable presenting that to the full RTM, even if the Senate bill goes through. The governor's idea is a little bit less flushed out, and I can't comment so much to that because we don't know everything on that particular. I can tell you what New York has actually done. I can tell you what California has actually done, or Hawaii has actually done. Those are 3 states that have bans on their books right now, but the Connecticut ban is still in the works.
I can speak a little bit to the
You know what I'm
bill.
going to be talking about.
We've been wrestling with 2 bills. Everything is right about 1003, which came through the environmental committee. We're coming with the governor's budget, the governor's revenue budget, which is 877. The last page is in this handout. Page number.
Page 11. Page 11.
11. And then 12. Page 12 is the governor's bill. And it's buried in page 127 out of 138 pages in his bill. And here it is. There's a summary on page 11 here, which says, basically that there's a fee of 10 cents applied to the plastic bags. It doesn't prohibit plastic bags. It doesn't mention paper bags. But it says that the stores will collect the 10 cents off of plastic bags. And it defines plastic bags. It defines compostable according to ANSI standard. They ducked that one. They got it. They got it. They put an ASTM standard D6400, which defines whether it's compostable or not, taking all that detail out of the legislation. Frankly, we've been trying to get a little bit of information out of Hartford, but it just hasn't been worked because either we're not asking the right people or they're not saying, because anything can happen to legislation at the last minute. The clock is winding down towards June 5th, and it has some very important issues, other issues to deal with. The odd thing is, and the suspicion I have personally, is that since this governor's proposal of 10 cents for the bag is buried within the whole revenue budget, that someone is going to have to go and excise this or modify it, or in the last minute rush to passage, the whole thing will be in and we'll be stuck with that. I don't think our environmental friends would be very happy about that because it's obvious. It doesn't ban plastic. It just puts a 10 cents charge on plastic and it's silent about paper. But that's what it is. You can read it right here.
If I might, I sent something to Matt, Monica, and Frank. And I was looking at the cost revenue package and their analysis. And I'm not as sophisticated as Frank is on this stuff, but out of, I think it's the Finance Committee and Appropriations, was several charges, including a 10-cent fee for the bags. And what I think may have happened, although I can't get any information myself, is the Environmental Committee may have said no bags, but I don't have the right to charge the 10 cents. And so out of the Finance Committee is coming the 10-cent charge. Also in that bill, just for environmentalists, are that the 5-cent deposit fee was also going up to 10 cents, and they were expanding the number of bottles that would be included in the 10-cent deposit, as well as other taxing things that were going on. But there is out of the Finance and Appropriations Committee, there is a 10-cent charge associated with plastic bags that made it out of committee. And so we're trying to see how somebody's trying to link that and hopefully put in some calls to people I know who are on environmental to see if I can get that figured out.
As we approach June 5th, Wednesday, they say that only the bills in that money Tuesday, Wednesday period are going to be very high ticket items. And perhaps 877, bill 877 with all 128 pages that has got through. You know, I think what we will have to be is nimble in planning for our meeting on the 10th. We have some other hot ticket items on our agenda. This one, it may be that there'll be some amendments, last minute amendments, may come from the floor that will sync us up with whatever the state does or doesn't do. And so we had a good meeting last Monday, we had another good meeting. And this is the
All right, so we
can't do anything about it.
Lois?
I mean, the significant thing here is that 10 cents goes to the state, it doesn't go to our stores.
That's correct.
So,
That's why it's in the governor's revenue bill.
no, I get that, but what does that mean for ours? Do we just say, okay, that's what they said, and therefore everybody who said really want that 10 cents because it'll go to our
One
store?
person's opinion is it doesn't have to. We can still go ahead and do it. It doesn't prohibit us from doing what we would be doing.
So it makes it a 20-cent charge. So I make it a 20-cent charge.
Or the
Now, wait a
state.
minute.
What?
Wait, let's get this understood.
Hey, you can't.
Let's see if I get it, why I included this in the handout so we could all read it. But the 10 cents applies to plastic. If we, and the way our ordinance is proposed, we're applying, prohibiting plastic and applying 10 cents to people.
So
it's
Interesting.
But if they sync up, as I said, if they're syncing up because the bill that Monica, Frank, and Mac have worked on, the mill, you know, whatever that is, millimeters of what it is, does sync up with,
It doesn't.
it doesn't anymore?
No, ours is
Ours is 10 minutes off.
yeah, ours
I thought everyone
is.
thought it did.
Ours is
It matches the bill, but not the governor's bill.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, I only care about the environmental bill.
The
If,
environmental bill
103.
is 12.
Is 12,
The
right.
governor's bill is 4.
right, so we're matching up with the environmental bill. It's still time, we can only hope that Hartford recognizes that the right way to do this is the California model, which is some goes to the state so you can claim it's a tax, and a percentage of it goes to the merchant, and then municipalities can be left alone.
No, in California, nothing goes to the stores.
I do believe some does.
No,
I'll
it
double
goes-
check.
It goes to the environmental,
Some goes to the environmental, that's the state, but I thought some went to the merchant.
this discussion.
But anyway, we'll deal with that later.
But as it stands, folks, we don't have any issue here putting this on the agenda, right? Okay, good. Let's move on then. And
Since you have your people here.
here for, yes. Greeting.
Just a thank you.
Good job. You know what,
Yes.
and our committees have done a tremendous amount of work, so it's just, thank you.
My forgiveness for
I said, I think.
for mislabeling the outstanding work that's being done for me, the committee.
It's been fun.
Okay, so we'll now move to the top, the appropriation for building the Oxbridge Elementary School. Mr. Coons, the head of the building committee, is here. We thank you.
And my co-chair, Janine.
Your co-excuse. Good. Well, but, so do we have two tonight, or are we?
You get two for the price of one.
All right, well, Kip, why don't you lead off? Or you guys gonna?
We got to figure it out. I think what we're going to say.
I might note that first selectman is here tonight. I think we have the entire board of selectmen here tonight, so we're privileged. Short one.
Did you were able to give people the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, basically, on the 3rd of June, we're going to give a presentation to the Board of Selectmen and the appropriate RTM committees, whoever else wants to show up, which is going to be slides and everything else to try and describe the whole process. Tonight, all we're going to do is basically, we're just going to talk about what the outline of that proposal is, and we're going to do it kind of fast and quick with a verbal overview. Duke and I are co-chair of the committee. So the quick background on all of this, to give you the first part, is that the Board of Education last March put together a concept and did a public hearing about building a new Oxford school. They created a whole series of ed specs, which are specifications required by the state. In September, they requested from the first selectman that she form a committee to build a new school. The committee was formed end of January. We started February 4th. We have 8 members, which includes 1 alternate. We have about 6 or 7 ex officio members. Basically, the first selectman, we have the Board of Education, the manager of facilities for the Board of Education, the director of finance, obviously the town administrator. We have a whole bunch of, as I say, professionals that are ex officio members. We've met for now 105 days, and we also, before we started our process, we took a tour of both the Oxford School and the Tokenie School to see the differences, what's good, what's bad, what can be done better, et cetera, et cetera. So we have had a number of projects we've been doing in the last 104 days. The first was to hire an architect engineering firm. We crafted an RFP. We sent it out to the public. 11 firms responded. We interviewed 6. From that, we chose 3 finalists, and we gave them each an assignment, the same assignment, which was to do a project concerning the site location of the new school on this property. It's a very tight site, especially if you want to build while the school's still in session. The 3 finalists gave their presentations to us, the committee, on May 9th. And on May 10th, we chose the architectural firm called SLAM, S-L-A-M, Collaborative. The fees all ranged in the area of about $2 million. The high one was $2.4 million. We happened to choose the low one, not because it was low, but because they were the best presenters. They all presented a concept of doing a phase 1 project, that is building the school in one shot. Also, we asked them to do it, what if you built it in 2 different phases? What did that do? How did it work? What would the cost be? Obviously, the costs were much larger, and the phase 2 would take another year to do. Most of the projects talked about a year of doing design work, and then starting building in January of 2021, completing the project by August of 2022. Other than if you did a 2-phase project, it might be a year longer and more expensive. The next thing we did for our second step was investigate state grants. I'm going to let Duke talk about this.
So Rusty Schreiner and I went up and met with the Office of School Constructions and Grant. We met with the director up there, and we actually met with the architect that would be assigned to the project. What we were trying to find out is, was it worthwhile going through the grant process? It's a very onerous process. There's a June 30th cutoff time. We did not want to rush the process we were going through in terms of looking at architects and construction managers. We reached out to several firms, and several firms reached out to us that help with the overall school construction grant process. And we went out and solicited bids for that and chose Colliers International, a gentleman by the name of Chuck Worthington, who's done this. He's very connected to the state. His name came up when we met with the state as a person that could walk us through. We showed him everything that we had done so far, and he felt we were on schedule. We were actually in good shape. The state also said that with what we had started doing, that we could hit the June 30th funding. So with that, we wanted to know what funding actually meant when it comes to the state. So Costas, who is the director of the Office of School Construction up there, actually has a list. So our funding, our reimbursed funding comes in at 10.71%. But that's based on the approved project, and that's based on approved square footage for educational space, based on our ed specs. So that will evolve as we go through the process with the state. So we're on track to submit a file to the state for June 30th for reimbursement of this building. There is an additional percentage that could be granted to us, up to 5%, based on us consolidating the ELP program into that campus and the fact that the ELP program continues to do well and grows. Part of the submittal is a cost estimate for the full cost of the building, along with the soft cost, also an updated enrollment projection, which we have, also the full funding resolution for the school, along with the resolution for the Board of Ed resolution and the resolution from the First Selectman's office. We've also gone down the path of initiating a traffic study, an environmental study, along with, I think that's it on the study front.
We have hazardous materials.
Hazardous material and abatement. So all stuff that's part of the application process. We will go up and meet one more time. It's kind of courtesy to go up there and meet with the Office of Construction and Management to show them the process that we're going through. So we submit on June 30th with the full funding resolution, and then we don't hear anything from the state till December 15th. December 15th, we will be told that we're on what's called the list, which is approved to go forward. And then come January 15th, we will be told that we're approved to move forward for the funding. In the meantime, we'll continue to do what we're doing in terms of starting design and schematic and everything else that goes along with kind of moving the whole construction project forward. So I'll pause there for a moment.
Yeah, another step we took was to hire a construction manager. And the first thing we had to do was decide what role do we want the construction manager to play. And after doing a review of all that, it was construction manager at risk that we chose, which is commonly done in large school projects. We sent out a request, and we had 8 firms came back to us. We had a subcommittee that cut that down to 3 firms. We interviewed all 3 firms last Tuesday, and we had them submit a fee proposal based upon a set criteria. Everyone had the same criteria. It's not what's really going to happen, but we said, okay, imagine the building construction costs are this, imagine the time frame is this, now give us your bid based on that. And we, the bids came back in and we did reference checking, and then on Friday morning we had a debate, we had a discussion, and we chose the firm, which is a joint venture of ONG Industries and AP Construction Company. You may have heard of them before. They did the high school, they did the Middlesex School. They've done a lot of schools around the state. They've been in this joint venture group now for 20 years. ONG, of course, as you know, is a huge construction materials firm. You see their trucks around here all the time. And AP has done a lot of work besides, they did the library as well, I think. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, well-experienced team that knows our town well, knows all our building officials, and they were the same price as Gilbane, the other firm that came in close. The third firm, Fusco, out of New Haven, was a higher priced firm, smaller firm. We didn't think had the horsepower to really do it and know our town and get the job done here. So we've hired an architect. We're well underway in terms of our state grant filing, and we've hired a contractor, a construction manager. Other things we've done, I think Dick's already referred to it. We talked about the ed specs with Dr. Landon. We went over the town permitting process with Jeremy Ginsberg, and we've hired, as Duke mentioned, we had a site survey update, traffic study, hazardous material study, and enrollment update, and geotechnical testing. What is the problem here? The problem here is the town's construction process versus the state's funding process. They're totally at odds. Our process, which we did on the garage, is we'd hire an architect. Well, first we'd have a committee tell us if they want to do a project. In this case, it was updating the town garage. Then they go out and they find an architect engineering firm. They do a lot of work on that. They do a lot of studying and background work and all the environmental testing. They come up with some designs. The building committee is formed, it works with them. We hire a construction manager. We go through the process of what they call conceptual designs, schematic designs, design development, and finally construction drawings, the 200 pages of drawings, which you then take to your subcontractors, you bid it out, you come back, you look at all the bids, you decide which ones you're going to approve. You got it all done, then you sign a guaranteed maximum price contract because now there's no doubts about what you're doing. And then, and only then, do we come to the RTM and ask for approval. That's the right way to do a project. The state doesn't allow you to do that. The state says if you want funding from us, and remember, we're talking about maybe when you put it all together, 12% of our total project cost we'll get back from the state, maybe. You have one time a year to apply. You must meet a June 30th deadline. You cannot have any construction drawings done at that time. You can't do any bidding. You have to go to them with what? Not even a conceptual drawing. They take the ed specs. The ed specs determine how many square feet are required under state construction. They add a factor for open space, common spaces. They then do their math about how much it costs to build in this area, and of course it doesn't cost a lot more to build in this area than the statewide number. And they say, okay, that's the size of your building. Oh, by the way, do you have an enrollment update? Because you're basing your space on the highest enrollment that you project in the next 8 years. Thank God we did an enrollment update in November. We have the 8 years. And with that, the enrollment update, the ed specs, and finally with an authorization from the town for the funding of the entire project. Forget about what the state gives you back, the whole project. Then you can go to the state, make your application. If we miss that deadline, we don't go back until another year. It's June 30th of 2020. So we thought, let's give it a try. Because why? The state funding is probably going to go down. We're at a 10.7% approval rate for our basic stuff this year. We're talking about going down to 5% for towns like Darien. Or maybe no funding because of the debt diet that Lamont's talking about, where he wants to transfer money over to transportation for any kind of borrowing he's doing. So we think it's worth the effort getting in there now, but you have to know we don't have a drawing, we don't have a design, we don't have a firm building number. We're coming to you with I'll call it a guess, an educated guess, but it's a guess. We're going high. We're going high on purpose because we want to come in lower. And we'll come back to you with progress. We'll show you what it is, all it comes out at. But we have to go in with a fully funded appropriation from the appropriating body in Darien, which is the RTM. And so that's our story. Yeah.
A year, not meeting that deadline, not meeting that deadline.
I've been for a while, I just kind of makes your teeth grit.
Not meeting that deadline pushes everything out a year, including the costs, and also,
Delays building.
And it also puts us in jeopardy of having to put more money into that school that we don't want to put into it right now.
What happens if it comes in higher?
If it comes in higher, then we'll have to come back and ask you for some more money.
No, I know the RTM side, but what from the state side?
From the state side, no, but
They're just saying this is their number and that's it.
they will look at it in terms of
Yep.
square footage of approved space. They'll add on a factor for common space. They'll say, here is the building cost. It happens to be $365 a square foot. That's a statewide number. We don't bill for that down here. They know that. And the guy says, we don't care.
So they're going to come up with a number which isn't the 60 million, right?
No, No, that's right.
Okay.
So the reimbursement would be on what they project. the
Right.
school.
But it turns out that the reimbursement, because we're consolidating early learning up there with 3 schools, are putting together up there. That they have a bonus for us, plus they'll give us money on the soft costs.
Such a deal.
I know.
You know,
Wait, Frank's got his hand up. Can we get Frank and then I got you. Jack.
Many times in our dealing with the state, there's an odd regulation that comes up that we just don't understand. Now, I ask you to be devil's advocate for a moment, is why did the state come up with that process, which is perplexing to us, but there's got to be a reason in the background somewhere.
Well, yeah, but we would take the time to figure that out, but not right now. We haven't got.
I'm not asking you to defend the state.
No, I'm not going to.
There's got to be some
defend.
logic in what they wanted to do.
Well, there's always some logic, but when you get to bureaucratic processes, they become very illogical at the end of the day. However, it's worth finding out at some point, but right now we're running to meet that June 30th deadline. Because if we miss that, we're going to miss a lot.
I got Jack next.
There's 2 things. First of all, the standard state cost is based upon the legal concept of apportionment, which is why, even though $100,000 isn't worth the same in the Northeast as it is in Alabama, all taxes are the same. So while I'm not happy that we're under that, it is what it is. But I think the 2 key areas that have to be stressed is, number 1, if we don't get this done by June 30th, we are delaying a school that needs to be rebuilt for a year. Number 2, we don't get a lot back from the state. So getting it under what the number that we know this year is valuable for our taxpayers. And then, if I was to add anything else on, they have a very experienced crew that's in this building committee. Kip was part of the Public Works, and so they will be coming back to us with the building process of the Public Works, and that's what we have to rely on and trust, but understand that we really have to move this forward.
Yeah, there should be some kind of formal update that we'd all agree upon, whether it's quarterly or whatever. Here's where we are, so everybody knows what's going on. We're no hiding it.
Barbara?
My observations, though, when I'm listening to the state business, I'm thinking the state wants a guarantee that the town is behind this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And when we pass 60 plus, that's our telling them, yes, we're in it. We're in it to win it, we're in it to finish it, we're in it to do it. If something bad happens, we're still in it.
Right. And Barbara, the only thing is, this is the most bizarre thing of all.
Okay.
Welcome.
There could be more?
Yeah, and probably there's more after that too. But the state, the office, they have only 2 architects, I think, on board. And they have to send one of them down here to look at the school, to decide whether, in their judgment, the school should be rebuilt or renovated.
Yeah.
It's not our choice. In other words, well, it is our choice. We can say, well, you don't want to do it that way. We're doing it our way. That's fine. No money for you. But I'm just saying they still have that option to come down, and we're trying to get them down to look at it, in all its glory.
Bad day, that'd be good.
Well, whatever. There's no good days over there.
Mike?
Are these new regulations since the previous schools, or since Rusty went through with this with Middlesex or high school?
It's been refined a little bit, but it's not materially different. It's always the same kind of approach.
So we would have done it the same way back when the high school in Middlesex.
But our percentage at that time would have been higher. I mean, you can imagine under today's rules, if we're at 10.71, whatever that magic number is, Bridgeport's probably at 92%, and New Haven's at probably 85%. And Hartford's probably 100%. And that's just the way it works. These are these grand list adjusted formulas they use to basically say, you can pay, you're going to pay.
What has changed and been upgraded is the software and the process with which you submit invoicing. And they've done that according to, the Office of School Construction. They've saved millions of dollars over the course of implementing this new system. It's very cumbersome. The firms that we interviewed and chosen all understand the process, including Mike Feeney, our CFO, understands the invoicing and the change order process. But you've got to adhere to that and be a real stickler throughout that whole process in order stay on track to get the grants.
So I heard the number 60 mentioned. What, is that where you're gonna get to the third act of what you're gonna request?
The total request is 63 million.
63 is what?
We've asked for 3, we're asking for 60 more. To give you some idea of what architects have come through with numbers, and they're doing rough numbers, we've had remember, we've asked them to do the finalists to do a proposal where it's a one-phase project, another two-phase project, one using the municipal zoning, one using the regular zoning. We've had numbers range just for the construction and soft costs, not for the bonding costs, not for the town costs, which are another additive. Anywhere from $54 to $57 million. So we think that with 63, we've got a big enough cushion, and then to come in and show you we can beat that number by a lot. But we have to go to the state with a full appropriation.
It seems to me you don't have a choice. You better go high.
Well, it's kind of like, under promise and over perform, which means other way around. We're going to try to ask more, but come in lower and show you we can do it.
If I may put a little bit of perspective in, the big change here is they started to change what the percentage reimbursement for certain towns. In the past, it ranged from 18 to 22%, and it was basically flat. So there wasn't, the second part of that, which is we may even get nothing if we wait this year, was never at risk. It was always in that range, and even some things like the Board of Ed building where we had a roof put on is at a higher percentage than this for a reimbursement. So that's one of the major changes besides the system.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Looks like we don't have any issue with putting it on the agenda, so that's good. Yes, excuse me, Lois.
Who's going to present and how much information are we going to provide to the RTM for this approval?
Are you folks going to want to get up and...
We're going to make a presentation at the Board of Selectmen meeting on June 3rd. We would expect that the appropriate RTM committees would be there. There'll be a handout at the end of it, or if it's not at the end of it, it'll be the day after. And that'll be very similar to the final presentation to the RTM.
Okay.
In other words, we're trying to give, I gave you the outline of what it's going to be. Now I'm going to give you the real thing, and then maybe some tweaks to the final presentation, but yeah.
If I've already spoken to Clara and then communicated with Jamie, who is going to allow us to do the same thing that Mac and I did on the police union, which is we will attend the Board of Selectmen meeting, will be given some opportunities to answer questions, then both committees will go to themselves. If I might, though, indulge just to make sure that we're hearing it the right way. I would appreciate, and I think the RTM would have a better understanding, if you two gentlemen were to present to the RTM the presentation you're doing to the Board of Selectmen, and then have committee reports afterwards. Because I think it's a very strong case, and if they're hearing from us, because F&B is going to come out with two things. Number one, if we don't do it by June 30th, we're delaying this school for a year. Number two, if we don't do it by June 30th, we may be causing harm to our taxpayers. It really comes down to that.
Lois?
Well, I would also suggest that we let all the members of the RTM know that this presentation is happening. It is for the committees that are assigned, but anyone who is interested is welcome to come. And there will be a presentation at our meeting, but let's...
I'm all in favor of that.
Okay.
I think that
The more
we
push
should,
the auditorium.
yeah, this is something, well, we're not getting a separate presentation.
No, I realize that,
But I
people should be
think
focused
people
on it.
should be aware that this presentation is happening at the Board of Selectmen meeting, so that, this is, pardon me for calling it the dog and pony, but this is the dog and pony and information session that's necessary for people to have an understanding going in. And I'm meeting with several people outside to do that as well.
But are we saying, we're saying they're going to present at the
Yes.
RTM meeting?
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes, Joanne.
I would just ask that when you present to the RTM, give us some comparison numbers of what school construction has been in other areas, because to those of us not close to it, $62 million sounds like an awful lot of money for a building.
It is, and we have all that data because
That would be helpful
the
to us to make us
architects gave that to
comfortable
us
with
when they gave their presentations. They gave us, here's a school in Bridgeport, here's a school, and it was so many square feet, and here's what it cost, and here's a school over here. So we have all that, and then also the time when it was built. Something built in 2009 versus 2017, we have a different number, obviously.
If I'm not mistaken, I had heard, maybe anecdotal, but I thought the committee also visited other schools in the area.
We visited the final 3 architects, we visited schools that they had built.
Yeah. Very interesting.
And I think that's worth to mention as well.
Easton Public School, which is it's called the Staples School in Easton, Connecticut. It's built like a great big barn. Looks like a barn with a silo and everything else. It's huge. It's 100,000 square feet, 120,000 square feet. It's the community center now of the whole town.
East Hartford Magnet School.
East Hartford, was it Charter Oak?
Charter Oak.
The Charter Oak, East Hartford Magnet School. And then we visited one in Hamden.
An elementary school in Hamden.
One from each, we visited one from each architect. And we were given the tour by the lead architect of each firm.
You mentioned enrollment numbers. Is the school, I don't know what enrollment numbers are.
Okay, 400.
Is it larger school, smaller size school, same size?
What, Oxridge? Oxridge enrollment, the updated enrollment went down in the near term. The maximum number I remember for non-ELP is 428 students in 7 years from now. That's their projection.
That's more.
428.
428.
But the ELP, they're planning on having, I believe you said, 10 classrooms with 150, a maximum of 150. I should say that all of our planning is going to be very focused on flexibility and expandability. Flexibility to make sure that the common spaces can be used by the community as well as the students, and expandability because we don't want to come back in 3 years saying we didn't build enough school. Okay?
But primary is that the school is worn out.
Well, the school is a California-designed school, built in New England. I don't know who ever thought that one through.
There was a lot of those that went
Collect the flags.
At least at Oxford, you don't walk outside like you did at Tokyo.
Just so that everybody understands, there's a nuance to ELP. The state requires, and I use the old terminology, so I apologize to the Board of Ed. For every special ed student we have, we need to have one normal learning.
Regular.
They call it typical.
I used to call them mainstream, but typical learning child. So if they're planning 150, they typically would have a 50-50 split in order to comply. And you might be 1 or 2 over on the typical to ensure, because people move in throughout the course of the year.
As a child turns 3 years old on their birthday.
But
So a
so
child that
everybody-
turns 3 on February of the school year, they automatically go into ELP, and that they have to be placed with a.
And there has to be a typical child there. So that's why that number sounds large. It's not 150 special ed children.
Right.
Thank you very much. Kevin,
Thank you. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Selectmen, thank you for coming by. And Mike, I put the bag topic up top in case you wanted to leave before this. Okay, good. Highland Farms, I'll just go through these and then we'll go ahead and review who's assigned to each one of these, and then we'll go ahead and set the agenda. Highland Farms, the only thing, I have a general comment, and that is that, and I'm thinking maybe I will send a note out to the chairs of all the committees, but there's a risk when you schedule a meeting the same night as the RTM meeting. the risk is that you're gonna run into stuff that you didn't anticipate. Discussion, dialogue is imperfect. And all of a sudden, you're sitting there at the end of your meeting, and you gotta go into the RTM and report, and you don't really have much to say, other than that there are a bunch of questions that haven't been answered yet. And so I am going to, I think, just send a note out and remind everybody, listen, have your meetings a week ahead of time so you can adjust. If something comes up, there's some questions, some problems, get them worked out before you put them on the RTM. Doesn't mean you can't have minority reports, doesn't mean that everything's settled and that somehow it's going to pass anyway, but it does mean that when you step before the RTM, you make a presentation to the RTM, there's something, you have something to say, and it has an impact on the debate. It's informative because the RTM is looking for information. That's really it.
There's no way you can write your report 5 minutes before the meeting.
No, it was, we saw. So that's gonna go on. And then the closeout of special funds, Jack, that's just.
We worked on that with the Board of Finance and with Jen Chinesky, who's our Director of Finance. The Board of Finance voted on it. We've actually voted on it in April. And we're just waiting for them to bring it in. And so that's real quick. And it's good.
Okay. Assignments, we've got F&B on Ox Ridge. And do you want me to put secondary education or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Seth, don't you dare leave him off this time.
I promise, Adele.
Just a question, I just wondered if we knew when the Diller, the running thing is gonna come
That's
forward.
supposed to come in June.
Yeah.
We anticipate it should come in June. It would be smart to put it on your agenda.
Well, I don't have anything on it.
That's,
Yeah,
I
we
raised
actually
that at
talked
the
about
beginning.
it at our last meeting and had a presentation at PCNH from Jen from Montanaro. We actually had it at the last meeting to avoid just the thing that happened with Holland Farms, so that all the committee members could ask their questions, and we have a month to get answers, and we'll vote on it at our next meeting prior to the RTM.
Okay, so the running,
Did you put any of that?
Gift from
together
DAF
somewhere?
is what it is.
gift from
So you're,
DAF, okay.
just to clarify, you're putting it on the agenda for June, right? Because Jen and Lori Bohr just presented to the Board of Selectmen, they did a great presentation. They're trying to hit a deadline in June, so ideally, and they're going through, passing through all the different boards, so ideally if we can
Well,
put
maybe
it
it's
on the
just,
agenda for June,
yeah,
right?
yeah, so we'll put that, all right.
If I'm
That
not
would be helpful.
mistaken, I believe the Board of Selectmen will be voting on it. Are you voting on it in June 3rd?
June 3rd, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
so
And I asked Jamie, I said, do they have to have voted on it for us to put it on the agenda?
I've actually,
Is that,
well, I was actually going to suggest to Clara that she also stick around for that one as well, at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
so we're gonna put it on, thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So who are you gonna assign? We got,
It's,
Can you
it's,
slow
it's,
down a
a-
minute? How much is on June 3rd? We got a
lot.
presentation on Ox Ridge, now we're
The
gonna have
10th.
another presentation? What was it, the 3rd?
The third is the Board of Selectmen meeting.
It's the-
yeah, the Board of Selectmen, yes.
Okay,
Our meeting's the 10th.
it's,
Our meeting's the 10th.
it's a.
I knew that, I'm just saying, we got a lot of information coming out on the 3rd at the
Well,
Board of Selectmen.
I mean, exactly. Again, I don't have anything addressed to me on the subject.
How about the
but-
presentation you just
but-
heard tonight?
Wait, you're back talking
No,
about
no,
Ox Ridge,
no.
she's talking about Dillon.
You know,
Yeah,
we're talking about the track now.
Okay,
the
but you're
jobbing
talking also
pad.
about having another presentation that same night.
I don't think we'll need to have a presentation
No.
on this, just acceptance of a gift.
Right.
But I do think it would be
But
useful.
people are going to ask about it because
There's a
it
lot of
cuts through
questions.
town property, there are neighbors who are
The neighbors
affected.
have been,
And the Board of Ed has already had these meetings, but, you know, it's going to have a lot of, like, I think every single one of these, this is gonna be a long meeting.
That-
Every single agenda item on here, including plastic bags, despite the fact that we've had all our answers questioned, other members of the RTM have not, and they're going to have those very same questions. on
Well,
every
we've had a
single
presentation already from the, I think Jennifer's gone around to the different committees. We tried to do jointly Parks and Recs, but you had other things going on. Even though they're not directly. But,
So,
it's not a common.
I think that
the
I think
the running path, folks, who are we gonna assign?
If I might, I want to address what Bob was saying. I think the question is, how do we, because I looked at the proposed agenda, and it's, how do we move things forward that the things with the least discussion are moving over, and it almost puts the bags at the end, because,
Yeah,
you know, I know that Highland Farm was first, and I'm anticipating that with the 3 committees that we're going to sign it, if we start there, F&B first, P&Z second, and Park and Rec third. And they're both secondary, so it doesn't matter who
Are we
comes second,
talking
whatever.
which one?
and now, we're running track, we're doing the running.
No, but we have to, if we start,
Yeah.
we haven't assigned even on that one, so let's start from the agenda going.
So.
I
the first-
respectfully put in an objection. I'd love to get Bag over with first. It's going on for so long.
Oh,
No.
All right, and the last time, you
I
know, 6
understand,
years
but-
ago, Bag came up on a night where the RTM was very grumpy. They had, I think, shoveling their snow sidewalks or something else that put everybody in a bad mood, and then they considered it. So now, 6 years later, please, give us a clean shot and a fresh, open-minded, articulate RTM that has not been through this other stuff. Please put Bags first.
Frank, we have a school.
I just request
That
it.
has to be built. And that to me is, I mean, there's.
Well, then put it
it's
second.
coming.
It's okay.
No.
It's okay. Just let us go first.
Folks,
No.
I'm just trying to get who's assigned to which project, then we'll get the order, what order we wanna put them in.
So,
Very good.
if we started, what you first had is the carryover from Highland.
Yeah.
So I think P and Z, which was not assigned secondary, should be reporting on that because there were a lot of issues that in fact Adele even mentioned in her email to the committee where many of those issues, so between
Okay, so we got
Park and Rec,
P&Z,
and I'll
Park and
introduce
Rec.
it and keep it real short.
Yeah, well, I think the important thing is that we keep it
Yeah.
as short as possible.
Yeah.
Can I just,
Right.
when we ask for comments, like whenever you say other committees, members of the public, I think you need to say outright when you say to members of the public that we are not talking anymore about the usage,
Right.
how it's going to be used.
It's not a public hearing.
It's not, but when you say members of the public, we had somebody come up as a member of the public who started a conversation that had nothing to do with the appropriation.
Yeah.
So, but you and I talked.
Trust me, that's not
Okay.
gonna happen.
Yeah, me and I talked about it once I found out
Yeah,
it was
right.
still.
Okay, so P and Z, Park and Rec, and who do you want primary?
On which one are we talking
Highland
about?
Farms.
F&B primary will be real
F&B.
short, and then the other two can deal with it.
Got it. Okay, do you want, I'll just keep going in this
Then
direction.
go to-
Close out of special funds is F and
That's
B.
2 resolutions, F&B, we'll be real quick on those.
Yeah, and then plastic,
No,
running track.
Let's just
I'll
get the committees
the running
assigned, we're
track
not
out of
doing
here.
the order yet.
No, I'm not there, I'm just,
okay.
the running track, we got F and B,
No.
no?
That's a little
That's a gift.
confusing, so
That's a
I'm
gift.
willing
It's a
to,
gift.
I'm willing to hear some input
Board
from
of Ed.
Jamie on that.
Board of Ed and.
It's
Parks and Rec.
I tried to.
No, it's both Board of Ed and town.
It's also,
And Parks and
yeah,
Rec.
the Planning and Zoning Commission
And
has
Planning
already
and Zone has done it, so I know
And
that
it doesn't
Park,
Parks and Rec have a?
yes,
Yes.
so I know
Lori
Park and
Burgess
Rec is
presented.
there, I know
Yeah.
Board of Ed is there, I know P and Z is there, and F and B is last on that one.
All right,
Although
so,
but I
you don't
don't-
even need to be on that one because
Well,
it's
we do have a
accepted.
gift.
It's a
You don't wanna get
It's
up?
a gift. It's a gift, we have to respond on gifts.
yeah,
Okay.
It's a big gift, it's about
You can
500,000.
say
yeah,
ditto.
right. And, so who's primary on the
That's
track?
the one I don't know if it's
Which one are we on?
We're on track.
The running track.
I would put it into education because it's mostly in the school property.
Education will
No, I don't
not
think
be
it is
voting
school
on
property,
it.
Joe.
No.
No,
Is that,
it's-
does anybody know?
It's on both.
Jamie wants to
Yeah.
say something.
Yeah.
Just a point of correction, because we just had this presentation. The total amount of the gift is somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000.
Ah.
And the way the Board of Selectmen looked at our piece of this is the part of the gift that's being constructed on the Diller property can stand on its own. So they really are separate and distinct, although part of the school's loop can connect with the loop that's going to be on Diller. So that makes a little bit of a complication because I see it as a park and rec responsibility from the town side.
Yeah.
But that's just some general input for your discussion.
Are there gonna be 1 or 2 resolutions? It's one resolution, right? Because that's what I'm saying is that Park and Rec may be the lead.
Yeah.
The Board of Ed will not be voting until after the RTM based upon how their initial resolution was done. I've been in touch with Tara about this. So that makes Park and Rec
The lead.
primary. I think P&Z is secondary. They've had several hearings on that.
All right.
And I don't think it's gonna be
Education.
a hard sell.
I don't
It's a
think so.
donation. So I think
No,
essentially we
it's-
could almost
it's-
just
Ed-
do Parks and Rec and be done if we're trying to
No,
move these things
but-
through.
But
Okay.
no, and then education because it does have,
No, I
it is
just
on
meant if
that.
you didn't want 5 committees reporting, that's all.
No,
Yeah.
We got 4 now.
We're
Okay.
gonna
I
have
mean,
the
we don't
committees that
have
are
to
reporting.
report, we could add on it, but
Well, is education reporting or not?
we had a
Yes.
sense, we had a sense in the meeting
Yeah,
that
I think
everybody
they
was
should.
engaged.
We did.
But I think
Okay.
it's important so that there's no confusion that P&Z report on what came out of there and education, and then F&B is just gonna be real quick, we voted on it, accept the gift, done.
Okay, so I'll go back over. Oxridge is F&B and Ed. Highland Farms is F&B, P&Z, and Park and Rec. Closeout of special funds is F&B. Plastic bags is Public Works, TGS&A, and Public Health and Safety. And the track is Park and Rec, P&Z, Ed, and F&B.
Yep.
Okay,
You got
now let's,
Oxbridge, you got education in there too, right?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so let's do order, starting with, I guess there's no problem starting Oxridge, do Highland Farms.
Gee, I thought we might get the 2 quick resolutions on the closeouts done.
So
Then-
move them, make them close out 2
Yeah,
and
right.
running track.
And no,
2
then
and
go
3.
to, and then it's a matter of whether or not you want to do Ox Ridge or do the Highland Farms.
Oh, you want to start with the gift?
No, he means the closeout of the resolutions of the funds that were.
Yeah,
funded.
oh, yeah,
So
okay.
those
So-
are-
That's 1 and 2, sir.
1 and 2, then Highland Farm, because it's 2 resolutions.
Okay.
Then Highland Farms, because that's a closeout from the prior
Prior
meeting.
meeting.
Then go to Ox Ridge School presentation, because that's something that we have to get done.
Yeah.
Then go to the Dillard gift, and then, I'm sorry, Frank, but the bag is gonna be.
That's gonna go.
That's all right, Jack.
It might have an easier.
I remember that.
I know you'll remember. But you know, it may work to your advantage that everybody's so tired.
Maybe I'll go home.
Seriously, we may not want to ask my question.
Frank, well, it's 1-0 to pass.
Okay,
No,
boys and
Frank-
girls,
Frank
wait a minute here.
is bad.
All right, I'm going back over this sucker.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question? Is there any benefit to doing the Diller before the Oxridge, only because it's acceptance, it would be pretty easy, we'd be through it, and then you do the big presentation of Oxridge?
We're
and then-
asking Kip and Duke and other members of that committee who work to be present there for a major presentation. I think out of courtesy to the 8 or so members that are on that committee and working extremely hard, that we move them up.
Okay, just asking.
Okay, so we're gonna do the 2 closeouts, 1 and 2, then we go to Highland Farms, then we go to Oxridge. So I've got close at 1, 2, 3, 4, yep, Oxridge. Then we have Dillard
It's 5.
as 5. Then we go to Highland Farms.
No.
Then we go plastic bags, I think.
Plastic bags, yep,
Should be 6, I think.
plastic bags,
Is that
that's right.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring in food with no plastic bags. Just start serving everybody around 11 o'clock.
60
I know.
plastic
I think that's
bags.
a good idea. What do you want?
1, 2,
Cookies. You want me to
3,
bring it?
I think you've done such a good
Four,
job.
It should be 6.
5, 6. I got
It should be
6.
6.
I got 6, okay.
They could-
One to talk is already done.
Yeah.
So,
Goes to September.
Monica.
can I have a motion then?
I'll
Can I
second.
have a motion? I got a motion and a
Motion
second.
to-
Why,
we
excuse
have a
me,
question.
Monica.
Frank had a great idea, and what we're gonna do is the 4 committees that are not working on this will be in touch with you, and since 3 of you are here tonight, to see if it would be helpful to your committee if we came and gave a presentation, kind of get in front of it before the meeting. Are you,
I'll get back to you.
Fine.
okay.
We'll send out a little note.
My committee has already been
You're up to
discussing it,
speed.
we're up to
Yeah.
speed.
Well,
And
Jack, at least you will be invited.
No,
You want
I
that?
understand, but we haven't discussed
Okay,
anybody's
excellent.
personal.
Got it.
The environmental people came to an education meeting.
Oh, but the ordinance has changed since.
But yeah, but we don't meet again until the Board of Selectmen meeting on June 3rd. So, and then I'm gonna email Clara, we're gonna have to meet between June 3rd and June 10th.
Okay, folks, can I have a motion again? We have a
Motion to.
do closeout, to close out the Highland, pardon me, but just so we get this in order. Highland Farms 3, 4 is the appropriation for Ox Ridge, 5 is Dillard, 6 is a plastic bag. Can I have a motion? I have the motion.
I second.
I have the second. Good.
I'm sorry, is the motion and the subcommittee vote on the committee assignments?
Yeah, we have to
Just
vote.
vote.
Yeah,
And the committee assignments.
right,
What you're-
I'll do that.
Okay.
We'll do that, it's a little out of order, but I'll do it next, okay?
So
So, this is the agenda. So we have a motion on the agenda, seconded. All in favor, please?
Who was the second?
Opposed?
I second.
Carry. Okay.
Frank was also.
So the,
Actually, take note of this.
now we're doing assignments, a little out of order, but here we go with assignments. The 2 closeouts are F and B.
We have to do that separately.
I know, but they're 2 separate ones, but you're gonna do both of them.
Yes, so we can vote on those 2 as one if there's no objection.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
really nice.
All right.
okay.
So I second that F and B is,
do we have to do it for each separate?
I was gonna give you the list and then you
Do the
can
list.
move the whole
Let's do
thing.
the list.
that works for me too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to. Ox Ridge is F and B primary, Ed's secondary. The Highland Farms is F and B, PZ and H, and Park and Rec. Then we come to Dillard, and that's Park and Rec, P and Z, Ed, and F and B. And the plastic bag is.
Was
pub-
education? Oh, you
Yes,
said
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
education.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the plastic bags is Public Works, DGSNA, and Public Health and Service. And have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
A
I
second.
second.
All in favor? Opposed? I see none. Abstentions? I see none.
There
Great.
are people that have to meet, as I said, I've already been contacted for Jen coming to F and B, but, you know, if she's doing it at the Board of Selectmen, depending upon how that agenda flows, we may just hang out. But yeah, getting it out, because there is no current resolution, it would be advisable
Right.
that for education, they understand that they have this and they should be meeting with someone.
The June 3rd meeting, is that at, where, 35 Leroy?
No, the June 3rd meeting is the Board of Selectmen meeting where Jamie has allowed us to participate in their meeting as if we're having a meeting
Okay.
jointly with the Board of Selectmen. And I invited Clara to come join. I'll be upstairs,
Okay.
yeah.
Should we be in the auditorium?
Great.
I'm not telling the Board of Selectmen where.
Other business, folks?
Yeah, it's a good thought, but I'm not telling
Other
you.
business going twice, I hear none. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Seth.
Second, all in favor? Rise.
Thank you, Seth.